Welcome to Game. Hey guys, and welcome to GTLive.
This episode 5, 6?
I don't even know anymore.
Maybe 6 of...
So many episodes, they can't be counted.
Of T-Series, our podcasty style of GTLive, where we spill the tea and talk about all things digitally, YouTubey, and gossipy.
Congratulations, most subscribed series on YouTube.
Thank goodness. We've been working toward it for ages. Thanks for everyone. The millions who pulled through. T-Series is finally on top.
Thank you all for your support. We're glad to be here. Excited to talk about a lot of stuff. So even though the last upload of T-Series was actually last Thursday, right? It ended up being last Thursday.
A lot has actually happened since then. We have plenty more to talk about. We were like
crazy week.
Yeah, we were like, maybe there won't be that much to talk about because it'll only be like 4 or 5 days between these episodes. But oh no, friends, there's a lot of tea and there's a lot of tea to spill.
And it's days like today and days, topics like the ones that we're going to cover today that make me really happy why we ended up starting this as kind of a format on GTLive. It's the reason we started in the first place, because a lot of the topics that we're covering today are things that we wouldn't have been able to cover just when we're playing video games or just doing kind of our typical like challenge-based live streams. The stuff that we're talking about today, it matters. It's deep. It's complex. And it's stuff that doesn't fit in anywhere else. And so this is if you ever needed an example of why we wanted to do this in the first place, today is that day.
Oh, we're talking
friends.
About everything from Article 13 to Logan Paul to, oh gosh, what else do we have in here? We've got YouTube news. We're talking about Kim Kardashian. We've got it all. We've got it all.
It's a lot, a little bit of everything. But before we get into all that other stuff, the one thing that we did want to call out is it's the personal tea. Stephanie, what are you drinking today?
Ooh, today I'm featuring a Tinkerbell mug, which I'm really enjoying, actually. I think it's got like a nice retro vibe to it. I'm into it.
I mean, how could you not like a Tinkerbell mug?
But now that Article 13 is passed, maybe I shouldn't show that off on the live
That's
stream.
true. You have just gotten us banned in Europe.
Oh man. So today I'm drinking a nice Irish breakfast tea. You might be familiar with the English breakfast tea. The Irish breakfast tea is the slightly stronger, slightly angrier version.
I was gonna say, does this
the red-haired cousin?
Did you lace it with some sort of alcohol? Isn't that usually what like an Irish coffee is?
With Baileys?
Yeah, with Baileys. Did you lace your tea with Baileys or something, Steph?
No, unfortunately, nothing that exciting. I just needed a little extra pep in my step, so I picked the highest caffeinated tea that I could come up with.
Excellent.
What about you?
I'm drinking a fan favorite, one that I think everyone can relate to here.
Ooh.
Diet Unbranded Soda X.
Ooh.
In my cup that is the same cup that I've used for every single one of these. Nondescript, slightly dirty blue glass cup.
So we actually saw some fan art.
Copyright friendly.
We saw some fan art the other day where we were drinking out of green mugs, and I feel like we should get some green mugs to have on specifically on GTLive.
We do have, as we've been experimenting with different theory wear products and things that we can kind of change into for merch. One of the things that we were testing out was 3D printing, like the game theory chalice.
Yeah, an actual chalice.
But I don't know. We kind of abandoned it after the first attempt because I guess the measurements went in a bit wrong. And the thing is enormous.
Yeah,
it feels like a small trophy.
It's really big and it's a bit unwieldy. It's totally undrinkable. You can't drink anything out of it. And then it's also the 3D printing messed up a little bit, so there's some weird like lines missing and whatever. That was an abandoned project, but we will find some actual like green mugs to drink out of. All right.
That'll be fun.
We have so much to cover. I feel like we should jump into
That'll be fun in a way that a lot of the topics we're covering today will not be.
Aww.
Sad. Segue to people giving up social media. So, we like to start off episodes of this little podcast format by doing stuff that's a little bit closer to home, a little bit less wide-reaching, a little bit less industrial. And one of the smaller stories that come up that I think is worth talking about is the fact that both Casey Neistat, vlogger extraordinaire and face of Samsung for a while there.
Oh my gosh, face of YouTube.
He was the golden boy of YouTube for a while.
They just could not stop putting him in like every advertisement and every like branded thing they did, which, you know, hey, good for him.
So Mr. YouTube himself, Casey Neistat, as well as Phil DeFranco, who we're actually having dinner with in a couple hours here.
Yeah. Funny story. We have been at so many events together, and we know of each other. We've referenced each other many times at this point, actually, in videos. He's talked about stuff we've done and vice versa, but we've never actually sat down and met in person. So today's the day.
Well, we've met him in person, just never like to a real degree.
Yeah,
right?
never like actually sitting down and having a conversation. We're just like in passing kind of stuff. Like you see people at VidCon, like you kind of it's ships passing in the night. No one has time to actually sit down and talk.
We fought in a World of Warcraft battle together, like
that's true.
A real life World of Warcraft battle together.
That's so true.
Which was
he
nothing
was on
like
the wrong
World of Warcraft,
team.
and he was on the opposite team.
Yeah, he was on the Alliance side. Horde all the way. Come
Lame.
on. Right.
But anyway, the two of them are supposedly giving up social media.
Yes.
They are, wiping the slate clean, saying like no Twitter.
And by that they mean they're using it in like very concerted ways, like only for business. So Phil claims that he's gone from like 3 to 4 hours of Twitter usage a day to between 0 and 10 minutes of Twitter usage a day, because he doesn't just sit there mindlessly scrolling through it. He gets on there, he posts his tweet, and he leaves, and he doesn't like monitor it all day or whatever. And I have to say, this whole idea is incredibly appealing to me. I love this idea. And one of the, like, it's not one of those things that you think about, but one of the things that Matthew and I have been trying to do, especially over the last few months, because when you have a baby, like you're just working around the clock. You're so tired all the time. You never really feel like you have a break, because you don't. Being a parent is like a 24-hour-a-day job. So it's actually a real luxury for us to unplug in any way, and whether that's not checking our email or whatever. But the best way, like the most impactful way to actually unplug, is to not look at social media. And so we'll have these chunks of time where we haven't uploaded to Instagram for like 4 days at a time, or we haven't posted a tweet this week or whatever. And you know what? It is actually awesome.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and it's funny too, because I think a lot of people think about unplugging or kind of like, purging themselves mentally or whatever by going to those sorts of websites and scrolling mindlessly and just looking at whatever content comes up. But to us, especially who have our jobs online and, our jobs are staying in touch with social media, posting on social media, things like that, stepping away from it and being able to just like not have to engage all the time has actually been really nice. It's actually one of the reasons why, I'm only popping onto Twitter for like the occasional inspirational quote on days when I need an inspirational quote, or like I'm feeling a certain way, or had a conversation with a friend and want to pass on some of the conversation or some of the key learnings on to everyone else to try and spread some level of positivity or awareness about something that we've done, but actually not engaging in a lot of these negative ecosystems has been really, really nice.
It's one of those things where people think of power, of like one way that people like have power is through like lots of social media interactions and lots of followers and lots of being present on social media online. But I think what you're starting to see, and we've actually talked about this a little bit with like the consulting that we've done and stuff, one of the actual ways that people are showing power nowadays is by being like, no, I have the power to say no to social media, to shut down these negative conversations that are going on, or like not shut them down because you can't stop them from happening, but being like, I don't have to engage in that. Like I don't have to be a part of that. I don't have to get dragged down by the trolls, like the really unbelievably negative like sentiments that's just all across the board on social media, whether it's like the superficiality of Instagram or like the angry arguments on Twitter or like the sad stories on Facebook or whatever. People are just like, no, I have the power to say no to that.
Yeah.
And it is empowering.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, and if you look at any sort of scientific research on this sort of stuff, like science has proven time and time again that if you are active on social media, be it Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, YouTube, I forget what the results really ended up, but in general, social media, you end up having a more negative experience in your day-to-day life. People who tend not to use social media on a regular basis tend to overall just be happier, and just be more, just be more content in their day-to-day life because they're not comparing themselves to other people who the algorithm's like, don't you want to see how amazing this person's life is? Or alternatively, don't you want to be exposed to all the horrible things that are happening in the world around you that unfortunately don't have much say in or control over, but it's going to expose you to all this negative stuff. And so
it makes you feel powerless. It makes you feel angry. Like, and those are feelings that you can't do anything with because, like you said, a lot of the negativity on social media is something like you can't really do much about.
And it's one of those things too, where like it's important to stay aware and it's important to inform yourself about stuff like that. But you can only fight the good fight for so long, I think is one way to look at it too, where sometimes you just need to have a break for yourself and for your own mental refresher. And so constantly being surrounded by it and immersed by it, it prevents you from kind of like going out and discovering your own voice or being with yourself.
Being with yourself. That's actually a great way of putting it. And I want to call out a couple of things from the chat, because I think by and large, this is sentiment. At least it's an idea that everyone agrees with. I think a lot of people recognize that it's also hard to do that, especially when your jobs rely on being a part of social media in some way, being part of those conversations. But I think there's a lot of agreement. Like Kate Reed says, there was a time when I gave up Facebook for the most part, only there for about 10 minutes, and it was actually pretty great. I think people recognize when they don't spend a lot of time on social media that they have a lot more time to do other stuff. And Brooklyn Bear says, please don't leave social media, lol. We need Ollie content. He's so cute and he makes me happy.
He makes us happy too.
I think that's a great point to bring up though, because I think we've been, for us, we have a baby, right? And we were very concerned and talked a lot about what we would share, like what we would share of him, how much we would share, that kind of thing. And I know people who have had terrible experiences sharing photos, videos of their baby online. If you thought like whatever subcultures on the internet you are a part of, if you think those are negative, toxic communities, you have not met the moms of the internet. They are gamers got nothing on moms of the internet. Like, I don't care. Like the deepest recesses of trolls on the internet, like hold my beer. The moms have got it all over them. They're really vicious. A lot of them. Obviously there are wonderful moms on the internet, but people we know and who we love and respect have gotten threats and just I mean people saying things like your baby is so ugly you should just kill it. I mean, saying stuff like that to someone who has like had a baby or has recently been pregnant, like you can't imagine how devastating it is to get those kinds of comments. We've been extremely lucky when it comes to posting anything about Oliver, and we're very, very careful about it. But social media is one of those places where you could be having a wonderful experience in your real life, and you're like, I love my baby. I'm gonna put up a picture of my baby, and all of a sudden that experience can be ruined by the negativity of social media. And so you have to have the power to say, I'm not going to respond to that kind of stuff. I'm going to turn this off because it's not healthy. It all feeds back into that same kind of thing where social media can be just a really harmful environment.
Well, and it's also not just like antagonistic at the baby a lot of times. A lot of times it's, hey, you decided to raise your baby using X method, or like, what, you're giving them solid food at this age, or
you couldn't be more wrong.
You stopped breastfeeding at this age. Like, no matter what you do, there will be, especially, I've seen it, like the moms out there who are, or parents out there, but it's mostly the mom.
Yeah, it's mostly the
like
moms.
I don't want to be discriminating,
but it's mostly the moms.
It's quite honestly the moms. Because the dads are like, I'm just here doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing, guys.
Also,
I don't know.
dads get a really easy skate by where they're like, oh my gosh, the dad is actually in the picture. Like, oh my gosh, the dad fed the baby once. Wow, he's an amazing dad. Dad of the year. Yeah. So
he makes the baby laugh. Dad of the year.
Dads skate by kind of easy, and moms get like all of the hate.
Yeah,
so
but
anyway,
it's one of those things that like now all of a sudden, because you were excited to share this piece of your life and share the love that you have with your child, it just gets beaten down, trampled on, and now all of a sudden, not only is the baby potentially getting made fun of, but also you as a mother, you as a parent start to get kind of antagonized. And of course, it could be one comment, it could be 10 comments, whatever, in a sea of hundreds. But we as humans, psychologically speaking, are primed to latch onto the negative stuff because that is just a failure of our biology. I did a speech about this at VidCon Australia about a year ago, and it's one of those things that we are psychologically primed to fixate on the negative, even amongst all this positive stuff. And now all of a sudden, as a parent, you're like, oh my gosh, I wonder if I actually am hurting my child, ruining my child, whatever.
Or it just makes you really angry,
Yeah,
and
the
you
whole
just
thing.
like, man, if I could slap somebody through the internet,
And so honestly, like, I've never been a super user of social media in general, right? Like, at most I would tweet like once a day. Instagram, maybe I'll post a picture like once a week or whatever. And I like doing stories. I like doing stories a lot. I like doing TikTok a lot. But it's one of those things where it's just, we're so busy, there's not a lot of time for it. But I will say, so like, I didn't lose a lot of time from scrolling through social media, but I will say that overall, I recognize that when I would hop on Twitter, I would get stressed out and sad.
that reflects exactly what
First thing in the morning, whatever. And the rest of your day then is down. It's like, hey, I'm glad to be awake. I'm excited to get started on today. Let's go do this. And reach for the phone, look at Twitter, and you're like, oh, some terrible thing happened. My day is now ruined. Or someone was mean about something. My day is ruined. And you go down this spiral, and that's every single day, and you get caught in this negative loop.
It's absolutely true. And you're always like fighting out of the negativity loop of social media. Just to put a button on that, Faith Cooper agrees with you completely in the chat, and I think summarizes what a lot of people say as well. Sometimes I can't be on Instagram or Twitter because sometimes it just makes me depressed, and I have really low self-esteem, and sometimes seeing other people's life can make me feel horrible. Again, that idea, I think that we know in our mind that everyone projects this best version of themselves on social media, and that's not really what's going on behind the scenes. But because a lot of people just aren't honest about it, we assume that everything is great for everybody else and just sucks for us. But it is exactly what you said, where going on social media almost never raises your self-esteem, almost never makes you feel better about your life or anything about it, and is a lot of times just kind of a sad place to be.
I mean, the counter...
And giving it up is, or limiting it highly, I think is, sounds great.
Obviously, the counter to this is engaging with like online friends. And I think that engaging with online friends, be it whether you're playing online games with them or talking on Twitter with them or Snapchat or whatever, like, that's fine. That's great. That's positive. You should foster those sorts of relationships. You should have people who you are able to connect with in communities online. I think some online friendships can be some of the most powerful friendships available. And I think it's one of those things that, like, there's still a stigma around of like, oh, you don't see each other in person. Whatever. It doesn't matter. If you connect with someone online, that's great. That's awesome. Like, more power to you to find that human connection. That is what the internet is there for. But, when you're talking about just like general social media usage and stuff, I think that's where you start to kind of run into those sorts of challenges. So, like, two sides of the coin, and I don't want to discount the positive impact that online friendships and things like that can have, like the
We've
true
met
social
so
element.
many great people through online,
Yeah.
but you can also take those like once you actually find a real connection with someone, you can take those conversations from a place that's totally public, like Twitter, into DMs or into email
Phone
or
calls.
into phone
What?
calls or texts or whatever.
Phone
No one
calls.
talks on the phone. It's text.
No one talks
It's
over the
it's
phone.
GChat.
Thank goodness,
it's Discord.
too.
It's
Phone
somewhere
calls
else
suck.
that's more private and like safer. So anyway, okay. So good on
phone
them.
calls.
Good on them for giving up social media. Maybe we'll ask Phil how it's going tonight.
Yeah, actually, since we're going to see him in a couple hours here,
Yeah.
we can ask him, like, if he's been able to adhere to it and how it's going for
Right.
him. Okay.
Let's get to the meat of it.
But that leads us to the top story of today, our little news cycle here, our little news show. Obviously, the big thing that happened today, the stuff that everyone's talking about on social media, and an issue that we've been, very personally interested and invested in, is Article 13. Which, to kind of catch everyone up, we did a film theory about this a couple months ago, but basically Article 13 was, and it was coupled with this other article, Article 11, but basically it was like the meme ban, is kind of what the moniker of it was, where basically it puts increased restrictions in the European Union around the way that other people's IP can be utilized, right? So this idea of the internet where everything is remixed, reshared, memeified, whatever, now all of a sudden there was tighter, Article 13 promised to restrict that usage, right? Where it's like, hey, if you're using someone else's IP, it is not, and it belongs to someone else, it is not allowed to appear on any websites online. You are not allowed to upload that stuff, right? And so the comparison that we drew, right, is film theory and game theory. They're two shows that are educational. They're transformative in the way that they use IP. You know, we're talking about Spider-Man, but we're teaching the physics of his web slinging. Yes, we're talking about Five Nights at Freddy's, but we're looking at like the deep lore of the game. It's critical analysis, it's educational, and it's transformative in the usage of that IP, right? With Article 13, when we were first talking about that, when we were first doing that video, those what we do is thrown into question. What we do is thrown into danger because, yeah, it's transformative, but if the letter of the law is adhered to, because those images, because those ideas and those copyrights belong to someone else, even though we're transforming it, it doesn't matter. They could still take us down, strike us down, what have you. And YouTube was very public about how they would have to handle this, right? Because of the new restrictions that the European Union would impose, they would have to basically treat the EU like a bubble, right? Where if all of a sudden you wanted to upload something, like they wouldn't let you in a lot of cases. Like they're like, hey, because we cannot trust that your video doesn't have the proper clearances to use whatever IP appears in it or whatever, we just have to not allow you to upload. And so everyone who's in the EU would kind of be trapped in their bubble, and everyone outside of the EU would be adhered to their own rules.
Unless you're a big media player. So basically, the whole idea of YouTube is that anyone can upload a video, and it doesn't matter if you are a movie studio, it doesn't matter if you're a famous late night talk show host or a celebrity or something like that, you can upload videos, and if people like them, and they'll watch them, and that's awesome. You can become famous, all of that. But under Article 13, what basically is, as it's proposed, is, could easily happen, is that basically YouTube says, well, we don't know Joe Schmo out there who might upload a video. We don't know what might be in it. We don't know if there's going to be copyrighted material in it. So we're just going to ban all individual users, like you said, from uploading. But the people who wouldn't necessarily need to fall under that umbrella are the big companies, the big movie studios, the big record labels, the big music producers, the celebrities who are already rich, famous, and powerful. Those people are companies. They're mega, like multi-billion dollar, organizations, some of them, and they would be the ones who could be trusted in this system. And so they're the ones who would win. They're the ones who would still be able to upload content because, they're big mega corporations and they're known and they're public companies. But it would be all of the individual users, all of the individual creators, every individual YouTuber basically would not be able to produce videos in Europe. It's incredibly impactful and it's really sad. And basically a version of that law has now been passed in Europe. Now, it's going to be a while before it's implemented.
Yeah, we have 2 years.
Yeah, but there are like sort of a number of things that that are in this law that are going to be really difficult to deal with. So
basically, first off, they have the member states, right? The members of so it passed, right? It's done. The vote is over. There might be like a couple other small things here or there, but this is the big one, right? This is basically, it's done. Yeah, there might be a slim chance for it to not go through or like be altered from this point forward, but really like this was kind of the final nail in the coffin of, hey, maybe we can change this sort of thing. So now it kind of goes to the individual. So the European Union's like, here you go. This is a thing. All you individual nations, all you individual states of the European Union, it is now your requirement within the next 2 years to figure out ways to apply these laws and apply these regulations and adhere to them, right? So it's kind of like a ticking clock now of 2 years where you're going to start to see, additional legislation roll out around this. That being said, right? So this all sounds bad, and it kind of is really bad. But there are stipulations in place that have been added since we first did that video and since kind of all these negotiations have taken place, right? So I haven't gotten a chance to read the full thing. It's no longer Article 13 now, too. It's also worth noting they've rebranded it so that way people can be confused. And here, call me a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but they rebranded it.
It's not a conspiracy even a little bit. It's, hey, people knew Article 13 and knew that it was bad for creators, bad for the free and open internet, bad for the sharing of unbiased information and information from independent sources and startups. So this whole initiative has been rebranded to Article 17.
It's now Article 17, ladies and gentlemen. So just to confuse everyone.
So if you hear of Article 17, it's actually the same
Article
thing.
30, it's all related, right? But this was the thing that everyone associated as the bad thing. Now we're talking about this new thing, and everyone's going to be like, what's this new? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So first off, be aware of that. But they've also come out with a couple of an FAQ press release on these new copyright directives and what actually got passed, right?
And I think a lot of what's in there is to kind of placate people. There's a lot in there that I think they're glossing over, that they're not talking about, and they're putting out these FAQs to kind of shut people up a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean, if that's the real opinion. Anyway.
Oh, trust me.
Yeah.
I am on, I'm right with you, Steph. But in the interest of trying to portray both sides here and trying to give you guys at home as much information as we currently have, obviously we haven't read the whole thing and what officially has gotten passed at this point. But according to the FAQ on the website about the copyright directive, right? They tried to, like Steph said, answer some of these big questions. So this is according to them. And remember, according to them. And what, the story they want to tell, right? Does this directive negatively affect memes or GIFs or
/GIFs? They don't differentiate the two.
Quite the contrary. The directive, as agreed, has specific provisions which oblige member states to protect the free uploading and sharing of works for the purposes of quotation, criticism, review, caricature, parody, or pastiche.
And actually, that does cover a lot of areas, and it would cover most of the ways that people share memes and GIFs /GIFs on places like Twitter, right? Now, it doesn't say what those things can contain. It doesn't say if there are stipulations on what those could be of, or if people, if litigation could be brought against people for using them out of context or whatever. But all of those areas, caricature, parody, pastiche, all review, all of that could cover massive amounts of content. So on the one hand, it's that seems to cover a lot of stuff. But the wording of this is a bit vague. So I think it is all going to come down to how it's implemented, right, and how it's enforced.
Yeah. So they say this will ensure that memes and GIFs will continue to be available and will be even safer than before, because previously such works were protected by different national laws.
And because people felt like they were in real danger when they uploaded that Garfield GIF /GIF.
Yeah, they were super nervous about it.
They were quaking in their boots.
Mm-hmm. The other one is, so it's been claimed, this I think is really interesting, right? It's been claimed that the directive will have a profoundly negative impact on the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of people. This is specifically referencing people like us who make our living online, by doing stuff that is transformative work, musicians, et cetera, right? So the answer, right? The contrary is more likely to be the case. The directive's intention is to help provide numerous people with the livelihood they deserve for their work, and which they require to continue creating. The draft directive intends to ensure that more money goes to artists and journalists rather than Google's shareholders, a transfer of resources that is always beneficial to jobs. So this one's weird to me, right? Because again, this is coming from the European Union's parliament, and they're specifically calling out a company and very clearly outlining we want less money going to this company, and so we passed this thing. It's very odd to me, I don't care. It's just weird for the government to specifically call out a specific company and be like, those guys, we're coming after them and we're redistributing the wealth that they have.
As opposed to just being like, hey, this is designed to This is designed to funnel money to rights holders and stuff like that. It does seem a bit targeted.
It does.
As opposed to like, hey, there are probably lots of other companies that may be benefiting in this same way. It does feel a little bit like a witch hunt.
Yeah.
Not that Google needs like help or anything. Google is a massive company. They have massive power in the world, and I think that there are a lot of places in the world where there's a lot of concern about mega corporations like Google and Facebook and Amazon being able to like subvert government systems or unfairly influence the way that people are regulated in those countries. And we're not trying to touch that at all. Like, that's not something we're trying to comment on. It's just, it doesn't really say any details about how it's going to help rights holders without unintentionally having a lot of collateral damage for people who are doing parodies, who are doing reviews, who may have copyrighted material in their creative works, but in a completely fair use kind of way.
Yeah, I think
and it's also worth mentioning that the countries, I should say, who were primarily responsible for pushing through these regulations, it seems like so far, are France and Germany. And Germany is one of the few countries in the world that does not have fair use policies. So we've actually run into this where we've been trying to either distribute something in Germany, or we've found an asset that was owned by someone in Germany, and there are no fair rights laws in Germany. That fair use is not a thing there. And so to know that that's the same country that's behind this kind of initiative makes me a bit nervous.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and it's funny because this is something that you wouldn't know unless you're kind of like seeing things behind the scenes. But when you can you have to define where your copyright exists, or kind of like where you can claim certain pieces of content or things like that, right? And when YouTube has this thing called like a copyright school, or a certification program where they take you through, here's how you use our tools more effectively, here's all the tools available to you. And they have different subjects, right? They have like a creator academy that teaches you stuff. They have a rights management academy that focuses all around copyrights, music copyrights, this and that. And it's where I learned a lot of my like how you operate a CMS, how you define what territories you're in. And Germany is always the one that it's like all of Europe minus Germany. Like, Germany is always the one country that is like kind of kept off to the side for exactly that reason, because it doesn't have these sorts of fair use policies in place. And so, yeah, you have to kind of be a little bit nervous and concerned about any initiative that deals with copyright protections and stuff that's coming from a place like that,
where they have no stipulations for fair use. There's
adding to that real quick too is this is also an initiative that's being pushed very hard by the music industry, right? So, and I've touched on this in the Article 13 video. I've mentioned it in the past just on the live streams. Music industry is pretty shady, so much so that like I really right now don't listen to a whole lot of music because I'm so
pop music.
Pop music. Yeah. I'm so disappointed with a lot of the stuff I've learned about how that industry runs, right? And the strong arming tactics that they use, the kind of like greed that they have, the way that they kind of like keep down small independent creators because they want to kind of preserve the stranglehold that they had over internet for such a long time.
By way of example, one of the things that that YouTube Music had to fight really hard for, and Spotify has also had to do a lot of like really tough negotiations for, was to get popular artists' music onto their platforms, and they've had to concede a lot of stuff. And the argument is always, well, those artists, the T Swifts of the world, the Ariana Grandes, hey, she's got to afford all of that bling that she's buying in that song, right? We have to make sure that she gets paid for her work. But what we've learned is that actually in services like Spotify and I don't know specifically about YouTube Music, but a lot of times it's the record labels who do these really tough negotiations on behalf of the music artists, but the music artists don't end up seeing like any or like just a very small amount of the money that they're actually getting. It's the buck stops at the music label, and the music labels get really, really rich, and the actual artists on the other end don't benefit nearly as much as they say they do.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things again where, similar to what we just said with Germany, if an initiative about like copyright protections and stuff are coming from the music and record label, it's another one that like kind of signals red flags to us.
We really are getting in the tea, huh?
I mean, but it is like,
and it does get into like a little bit of that conspiracy theory zone. We get it,
it is, but it isn't, because it's documented across history. We know people who have worked in the music industry, and they will outright say this stuff. They'll outright say how bribes happen on radio stations to make sure that certain artists pop, and how certain songs get elevated versus other ones to make sure that like the correct artist is, and the one that the music label has put their investments into or whatever, is the one that like becomes popular, and not some other person who kind of like rose through the ranks.
Yeah.
And how, like you just said, how they will oftentimes strong arm a lot of these digital video companies into increased copyright protections and this and that, when technically the bar, and I think that's the biggest thing here, right, is YouTube, I think we can all agree, has a very aggressive copyright system. I mean, when I myself am getting flagged for my impression of the SpongeBob SquarePants opening, when it's my voice and I'm not even using words from the song, and they're still like, that's our song, and it's like, no, it isn't. They're like, too bad, we're still reclaiming it. Like, you have a very aggressive copyright system in place.
Yeah.
And so what the music industry and what these articles are really asking for is even more strict policies in place, even more strict filtering systems in place.
Yeah. So basically, what one of the tenets of Article 13, as it sits right now, is that
Article 17, Steph. We got to start rebranding it now, because otherwise people are just going to think about this one thing and think it's over.
And as so shoot, what was I going to say? So when it comes to
sorry, I didn't.
Man, why'd you do it? Why'd
you do
it?
I was talking about the evils of the record labels.
I know. So when it comes to copyright policies, basically YouTube is now being held accountable for anyone who violates copyright. So if we upload a pair of Nike sneakers and they're showing on camera, and Nike's like, hey, that's a copyrighted image, there's a Nike branding on that shoe, you're not allowed to use that on YouTube. Instead of the person who uploaded it being responsible, which is actually how the system works now. Like, if you upload copyrighted material, ultimately, like, at the end of the day, if you don't take it down, if you don't like comply with the copyright strike or whatever, they can sue you. They can come after you. Now it actually goes to YouTube. So on the one hand, it's like, hey, I can upload whatever I want because it's not my fault anymore. They'll just go and sue YouTube. No. YouTube is not going to risk getting sued because Joe Schmo uploaded a Nike sneaker. They're going to be like, oh no, we're going to make it so that no one can upload Nike sneakers so that we don't run the risk of it, which means that they're going to lock down all their policies on what anyone can upload. And you'd either have to go through some kind of like rigorous approval system, or they'll set up an AI mechanism to do it. And we all know how well those work. When YouTube first rolls out like a new AI or a new algorithm change, we all know that those work really well, just like the demonetization system worked really well.
And here's the thing, right? Like, and I want to make sure again that I'm trying to portray this as fairly as possible, which is the idea that I've talked to people who are very pro Article 13 and what it means. And these are people who are coming from the traditional media space who are very nice. They're not unreasonable people. And they will say, hey, YouTube, in their estimation, is fine. These articles now beg to differ, but what they were saying is YouTube is fine. The problem is actually a lot of these other sites, like Dailymotion is the example that everyone points to, right? Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have ever been to Dailymotion, but you can find a lot of like full re-uploads of like Pokemon episodes,
movies that aren't even out of theaters yet.
New episodes of like RuPaul's Drag Race the day after the day after it airs and stuff like that. You can find a lot of that stuff on Dailymotion, and their complaints.
That's just a random example. That's not.
Yeah, I've never watched RuPaul's Drag Race there because it's impossible to watch on any other format because they refuse to let it stream anywhere else.
Oh my God!
Stop preventing me from watching your show, RuPaul. No, but it's serious. Seriously. No, but seriously. No, but it's one of those things where I get that, right? I get that there are a lot of websites out there that don't have like YouTube has invested $100 million into its copyright protection system. And it's really robust. It's really sophisticated and it's really advanced. But it's one of those things that a lot of these other websites don't care, and they've made a business off of not caring. And I get this idea of wanting to protect your content from those sites who are illegally using your stuff. That's fine. I support that. You know, you have every right to be upset about that sort of thing. The problem that these articles open up, and I think still, even with whatever revised language there is, the problem that it opens up is now all of a sudden it falls into a weird questionable gray area where you've opened the floodgates and the copyright holders can abuse the power that they now have, right? Where it went from, hey, we want to protect ourselves from re-uploads on these sites to now we have the power to kind of like strike down anything we want to, and just because it doesn't fall into some of these vaguely defined categories.
And now we can sue YouTube over it, basically.
Yeah, we can take down, like they explicitly called out here, right? We can take down Google because too much money is going to their shareholders. And it's like, you know, like, I'm sorry. It's one of those, Google gets a lot of flack because it's a big company, it was founded on the principle of do no evil, and anytime a company
They actually don't have that policy.
I know. It concerns me a little bit that they got rid of that one. But when you compare it with the people and things that we've seen Facebook do, it's a lot better. But it is one of those things that, like, it is scary anytime you have a big company that, right? We're sipping a lot of tea today. A lot of Diet unbranded Soda X from generic blue mug that is copyright friendly. But it's one of those things, right? Where anytime you see a big company have a lot of power in the market, that's fine. I get that you're concerned. I get that you're nervous. But at the same time, you have to appreciate Google has changed and revolutionized so many different things about the way that we share information, about the way that we, watch entertainment. A lot of it for the good, sometimes for the bad, but a lot of it for the good. And so, like, yeah, it's a company that keeps growing and growing. Like, I don't know. I'm really conflicted about it because I understand the desire to kind of like limit their control over everything and, protect people's privacies and this and that. But at the same time, I don't think that this is the right way to go about that. And I think it
does seem like it's a very broad-reaching kind of legislation where maybe a more targeted approach could still be very effective.
Yeah, it seems like this legislation, even with all the arguments, even with the revisions and stuff like that, is still trying to solve a problem with a sledgehammer that really needs like a ball peen hammer.
Ooh, good use of ball peen.
It's everyone's favorite type of hammer. It's very useless type of hammer.
I want to call out a couple of things I've seen floating around in the chat here that again, just sort of to summarize a lot of what people have been saying. YouTube Eli Elias says we do not even have the technology to comply with this policy.
No.
And that's one of the issues, is that there actually have to be a lot of systems built to be able to even remotely address this kind of legislation. And that's one of the issues that YouTube brought up. One of the other things I saw floating around in the chat, and I'm sorry I've missed who exactly said it, was, hey, does this mean we have to put our fair use disclaimer in all of our descriptions on YouTube videos now? So first of all,
let's talk about this.
Just first of all, putting something in your description of a YouTube video that says this is fair use does not in any way make it fair use.
I wish.
Putting it in the video where you say, I don't own the copyright to this. This is fair use. Don't sue me, does not help you. That is not a thing. That does not have any legal weight. Just saying that this is fair use does not make it fair use in any way. So not only does that not work in this new EU system, but that also currently just doesn't work anywhere.
I mean, it's good of you to remind people of what fair use is.
But your video might not be fair use. And just saying that it's fair use doesn't make it fair use. So just as a fun FYI to everyone out there, if you've ever done that, you don't need to do that, first of all. If your video actually is fair use, it's more likely to be treated as fair use. But you saying it is fair use doesn't do anything.
Here's a funny irony of this whole thing too, and right, I keep calling out the we're going to take money from Google shareholders and redistribute it to the people the small guy, like the record labels. The funny thing about this, I was reading some articles on the topic, because so many websites and individual content publishers and this and that aren't going to be able to have the technology to adhere to these new restrictions, right? Aren't going to have the sophisticated technology that's required to be able to filter out all the IP that's owned by other people. Some analysts that I've read online have said it actually puts Google into a better position now, because they're the only person who really has those sorts of systems in place, or Google and Facebook and a small handful of the biggest players. And now what they can do is sell that technology or license that technology out to all the small guys, so that way they can comply. So they might actually be able to make a profit off of this thing, even though this whole time they've been arguing against it.
Wow.
So unintentionally, the EU has been we're worried about Google.
Has actually consolidated power to only the biggest companies.
They might have actually this is our goal, and they might have actually screwed it up and given Google even more power than even Google was fighting, because Google was against this, right? Yeah. YouTube was against this, and now all of a sudden, the analysts are well, they are the only people who have this, and so you're either pushing the market out for all the people who can't afford this sort of thing, or they have no one to turn to at this point to build this sort of stuff other than Google themselves.
Wow. So Google is now going to be the gatekeeper instead of other people being able to upload stuff. Wow. Okay. All right. So we have spent quite a while on that. I feel like we should move to a different topic.
That's the reason. You mess with the system and you just have all sorts of unintended consequences.
I think that is the big name of the game here, is unintended consequences. So, or maybe partially intended consequences. So who knows?
So it's one of those things that's just to put a cap on it, right? Yeah. Is there's a lot in question. The fact that this is passed is not really a good sign. It's not one that we're not over here being whoa, it passed.
Less competition from creators in the EU. No, it is not that at all.
No, it's not a good situation. I mean, we'll see how it plays. But at the end of the day, it just matters at this point of how it's going to play out, right? Yeah. How the because at this point it goes down, like I said earlier, to the member states, right? It goes down to the individual countries of the EU to basically decide how they want to enforce this stuff moving forward, and they have 2 years to figure that out. And I think now, because we exist in this weird gray area, it's really going to depend on how all these individual states are deciding how they want to enforce it. And that's where the proof gets into the pudding. Is that the phrase?
The proof is in the
pudding. Proof is in the pudding.
It's not pudding, it's putting with it. It's with T's. It's not pudding.
There's no
as
pudding.
In butterscotch and pistachio pudding.
JELLO?
No,
it's not alive.
I know, right? I thought it was for a long time, but it's actually in the pudding.
Oh.
Pudding. I know, it's less exciting that way.
That's significantly less
exciting. I know.
Exciting.
Here,
okay.
To lighten the mood and make a transition, I want to call out Six Socket from the chat, who says, I don't like tea, but I drink it just to get into the moment. I appreciate that. I encourage everyone, get into the moment with us, even if you don't like tea. And for goodness sake, if you don't like tea, you haven't found the tea for you.
Friend,
keep trying.
What is in that tea that it's getting you in the moment so effectively?
In the moment with, hey, GTLive deserves some tea. All right,
let's segue
to something a little bit lighter, shall we?
I don't know if this is necessarily lighter, Steph, but we have two related stories here, right? So, and I think they show two very interesting sides of the coin, right? So on one side, we have Kim Kardashian's daughter, Northwest. The greatest name ever, Northwest. So she is becoming a
Celebrities
YouTuber.
Get away with murder and also naming their kids anything.
Get it? It's a direction, Northwest, just like Chicago is one of their other kids' names. It's great. So celebrities and YouTubers, the question here is celebrities and YouTubers, is there a difference anymore? So Kim Kardashian's daughter, North, has entered the YouTube fray because she started to collab with other YouTubers, right? So she collabed with Jojo Siwa, which, for those of you who don't know, is a very popular channel. She is a very interesting person to meet in person. She's very nice. I was at a Christmas party with her where it was a white elephant gift exchange. It was Joey Graceffa's birthday party or Christmas party. And her white elephant gift was her own merch. It was Jojo,
a suitcase full of her own merch.
It was Jojo
actually.
Jojo Siwa branded suitcase, and then you opened it up, and there was her bows inside, her like signature Jojo Siwa bow. At which point she's like, "Congratulations, you're now the proud owner of 3 Jojo Siwa bows, which have sold 15 million whatever units."
It was 4 million.
Whatever,
4 million
whatever it
units.
was, but you don't announce that sort of thing. But like in
At
the
a
middle
Christmas
of
party
full of YouTubers, like you don't bring your own merch as a Christmas gift, and then you also don't
love
brag.
it actually. I love that she did that. I think
a low-key brag.
oh my god, no, I think it's the
terrible.
greatest move. I like love it. I love it.
Yeah, do you want to go around to other people?
No, I would never do it. I think that I if I considered doing it myself, I'd be like, wow, that would make me the worst person ever. But the fact that Jojo Siwa gave people who like again, like other YouTubers who gave another YouTuber like a suitcase that with like her face on it, and you open it up and there's just a bunch of bows in it.
It's amazing. It's also worth noting that like she was the youngest person there, and the suitcase was a child's suitcase. Like,
everyone else is like 25 to 30. She's like 12, and she's like,
excuse me, she's
giving everyone
15.
bows.
Thank you.
Yeah.
She's giving away bows to the and it was like a child suitcase. It was amazing. And then she not only brought one white elephant gift because she had multiple members of her family there, so they had 2, and both of them were Jojo Siwa branded.
Thank God.
It's
Thank
great.
God.
Oh my gosh. But no, she's really nice. She's very high energy, but like it was just a funny, weird first impression that I had of her.
If you don't know her background, she pre-YouTube, she started out as one of the stars on Dance Moms. She was a latecomer. We watched the first few seasons of Dance Moms, not gonna lie, no shame.
No shame.
But she was a later comer, and basically kind of blew everybody's socks off because she was so high energy, and her mom were just so hyper focused on her success, and she was like at the same time like super adorable but also like a completely vicious competitor. I've watched a couple episodes, and she will do whatever it takes to like get to the top of the pyramid.
They're pretty.
So she's intense, she's bubbly, and she is committed. And now
great combination.
And now she's collabing with Kim K's daughter.
Yeah, so Jojo, she's got 9.3 million subscribers and counting. She's been doing all sorts of collabs with all the usual contestants in that category, like David Dobrik and Trisha Paytas. So first off, like the key takeaway of this isn't about Jojo Siwa, although that was a fun little tea moment to spill. No, the story about this is, hey, you have Kim Kardashian's daughter, right? So like coming from traditional media like Kim Kardashian is like royalty at this point, right? And so for her to come onto YouTube and start doing YouTube says a lot about what it means to be a YouTuber, right? Like, hey, why would this, coming from a celebrity culture, a celebrity family, like the biggest thing in media, you have like, the daughter who, Kylie just became a billionaire, this and that, like, but here is, Kim's daughter who wants to become a YouTuber. So I think that's, first off, really interesting. But then on the other side of things, you have our good friend Logan Paul. Logan Paul, who has said that he is weary of the YouTuber label. He posts below his message to his Instagram story, right? YouTube is dope. Internet-based content is awesome. But I have a very deep desire to do more. Stand-up comedy, music, directing, films, writing.
All of those are very different fields, by the way. I just want to pause there and point out that people go to school to study each individual one of those things. For him to say, I want to do all of those things, is literally him being like, I want to do 5 different industries at the same time. And to me, that reads as kind of directionless.
Well, okay, so well, to continue the quote, I'm just stuck in a loop where my stupid millennial brain is so satisfied with the instant gratification that social media provides. Post a vlog, get views. Post a pic, get likes.
Jeez, humble brag much.
Right. It's like I bet if he went to a Christmas party, he would bring his own merch. It's like I've been conditioned to lack the patience of investing in the deeper art of entertainment. Do I continue making internet shit, or do I take 1 to 2 years of low-key character building to become, or sorry, not low-key, or do I take 1 to 2 years of low character building to become a super entertainer? I don't want to be a YouTuber for the rest of my life. F that. In fact, I think being a YouTuber is whack. It's a very limiting pigeonhole that will not provide the long stardom that I'm looking for. Someone give me answers, please.
I have a lot of thoughts about this.
Do you?
I do.
I do too. Let's start with you, Steph.
Okay, so his quote's really interesting. I'm going to focus in on the Logan Paul stuff. First of all, I think the collab, like just to cap the other one.
Yeah, so you have one celebrity who wants to become a YouTuber. You have
and then
one
YouTuber who wants to get out and become a quote-unquote real celebrity. On the one hand, I think it's really smart of Northwest to get in on the YouTube scene and get in on it early. Children and children's content is just it is not only one of the biggest, but also we've learned relatively recently, like, the smartest vertical on YouTube. Like, if you think about people who are actually the most sophisticated and the most business savvy on YouTube, you'd be shocked to know that it's the family vloggers and the kids YouTubers. They're so smart.
Scarily smart.
Again, they're sort of like Jojo Siwa. They're extremely enthusiastic and they are in it to win it, my friend.
I mean, it's like the next evolution of stage moms in a lot of ways.
It is. And so Northwest, like, sort of getting in on this scene and using Jojo Siwa as an entree to do that, like as her entryway, is super smart. I think it follows in the footsteps of other people we've seen, like Will Smith, who like see, and we've been in rooms where he's talked about this. He's like, I am jealous of this generation. I wish that I had been born into the YouTube generation. I feel like I missed out on it. If I had it to do over again, like, I would kill to be a YouTuber. He's like, he literally sat in front of like us and a whole bunch of other YouTubers and was like, I would kill to be in your shoes.
It's true.
He literally, those were his words. And
then he became the star of YouTube Rewind.
Yeah, it happens.
Good on him. Congratulations. And then he became a meme.
Yeah. But anyway, so that is this idea, and I think that's also this idea that probably the Kardashians have for Northwest, where they're like, hey, eventually, someday, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, the TV show, may run out of steam, but our daughter, like, is starting out on this career journey, and she can make an empire out of YouTube. And so I think it's really smart. When it comes to Logan and this, like, I'm sorry, this is whining. He's just whining. Like, he's like, look at me, poor me. I'm so popular and bored. And honestly, if he thinks that YouTube is again, this is the tea.
Ooh, I smell a steaming hot cup coming up.
If he thinks that YouTube is limiting, it's because he has put those limitations on himself.
Ooh, that's a good one.
If anything, YouTube is the ultimate place to become what you make of it. And when it comes to like careers and stuff, I'm sorry, that's been disproven already. Look at Shane Dawson, look at PewDiePie, look at Jenna Marbles, look at, like, there are actually Colleen, look at so many examples of people who have a decade worth of a career at least on YouTube, and an extremely successful one where they're not running out of steam, they're stronger than ever, and it's because they've made something out of the opportunity. They didn't view themselves as lesser or inferior to quote unquote real celebrities, and so they weren't, and so their fans didn't view them that way. If he thinks that the internet is that being a YouTuber is whack, it's because, which, oof, by the way, like, are we really using that word still?
Whack.
It's a weird one.
It's a great word.
Whatever.
Whack.
It's because that's something that he's built in his own mind, and it's something that maybe he's just not smart enough to see a way around.
Ooh, okay. So
there it is.
That was great. Well done, Stephanie.
Felt good.
That was nice. Way to take him down. Way to show him.
Honestly, if you have the platform that Logan Paul has and you feel too restricted, no one's putting restrictions on you other than yourself. Get over it.
You know what, Steph? He can't create the content that he most wants to create, which is exploiting horrific tragedies on his channel for shameless views, okay? If he can't shock a dead rat with his taser, then he needs to find someone who will let him do that, okay? He is being limited in his creative endeavors. Here's something that I never thought I would say. I kind of agree with Logan Paul.
Get out of town.
Don't take that too seriously. But I will say I understand what he's saying when it comes to the title of YouTuber being a very limiting pigeonhole. I agree with Stephanie. I think YouTube and having a YouTube channel, especially a popular YouTube channel like he has, offers him infinite possibilities of what he wants to, where he can take his audience, what creative he can make. Great, awesome, good on you. I think you're totally right, Stephanie. I think your criticism of him and this idea that he's limiting himself is totally on point. But I can also understand his thought process of how the label of YouTuber is a negative stigma. And again, this is something that, we briefly addressed with the couch video from a couple weeks ago, where I talked about the stigma that comes with YouTube and the stigma that comes with gamer, right? We have Kim Kardashian's daughter, celebrity of the highest caliber, coming over to YouTube and wanting to become a YouTuber, yet at the same time, you have the traditional media, talking about YouTube like it's still a second-class citizen, looking at YouTubers, looking at gamers, looking at the people who've built up their audiences and are celebrities online as if they don't matter, ignoring them, talking down about them, not sharing positive news stories about them. And so Logan's not really wrong in that sense, right? If you are a YouTuber and you're trying to do things like direct or whatever, like a lot of times people will shut their door in your face because of where you came from, which I can I just say is like the stupidest thing ever, right? Like, it's kind of like saying like Kylie Jenner is a self-made billionaire. She's not. Did she start at zero and then work her way to $1 billion?
She started at like 500 million and now she here, okay?
Like guys, self-made billionaire means I started from the bottom, now I'm here. Not I started halfway there and now I'm there because my family paid my way. Like, YouTube is full of self-made millionaires, right? Like, that's the thing. You look at PewDiePie, you look at Markiplier, you look at all of the Forbes top 10 most highest earning YouTubers. These were people who weren't making aren't coming from celebrity families, they are the epitome of the self-made millionaire label. I don't know how much they have at this point, but tens of millions, some probably approaching hundreds of millions at this point. It's one of those things. And it's...
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like Jeffree Star and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah, Jeffree Star is a great example, who used social media to start at nothing and get here, right?
And I don't think anyone is arguing that Jeffree Star is lesser than a celebrity. I think that a lot of ways it's how if you view yourself as lesser and you accept when people shut the door in your face and whatnot, then yes, then you are. But if you say like, no, I'm going to forge a different path to get to the same place, or I'm not going to just take up the idea of like, oh well, can't beat them, join them, but no, I'm actually going to beat them. But people do.
But that's the thing though, right? Is like you have to beat them, and I think that's the struggle right now that we're in. I think you're starting to see it turn a little bit.
That's the thing. I think if Logan just waits it out like a couple more years, it'll be fine.
That's what I was going to say he's right. There's still this stigma attached to YouTuber. You got to wait like another year. I think you're starting to see the tide turn. You're starting to see people respect this platform, respect a lot of the popular creators on it, and understand finally for the first time what's really going on here and the power of what's going on here.
Oh, and sorry, I'm seeing a lot of this in the chat. Jeffree Star is a makeup mogul who lives in a house that's covered with pink satin on his walls. He has 10 pinball machines, 5 dogs, and like 8 Lamborghinis or something. It's crazy.
Yeah,
check him out. Just Google him.
He's made an empire around makeup, his own makeup, helping other people produce makeup.
He's made a very long-term career. He's also very controversial. We've talked about him before, but he's worth a look up because he's been around online as an influencer for like 15
Since
years.
Like
if you
the
want
MySpace days,
right?
If
you want to talk about long-term online careers, he's a great example. Anyway, carry on.
But it's one of those things, right, where like you have celebrities who kind of walk into rooms and are just handed stuff, right? Like, popular actors, and it, like, their agent walks into a room and I represent this person who's moderately popular or whatever, and they're like, well, great, here's the Tonight Show, here's, all sorts of positive press coverage, here's a magazine cover, whatever. If a YouTuber's agent, I don't have an agent, but like based on my experience,
a lot of people do, though. A lot of people we know do.
Yeah, but like based on what we know about people who do have agents, right? If that agent walks into the room and I represent this guy, you're not getting the same treatment. You're not getting that same level of opportunity or respect. And so it is one of those things that's changing, and I think it's been a slow process. But to reinforce his frustration, I understand that, right? It's frustrating to me that it's why we did that video about the good that gamers do and that YouTubers do, because there's stigmas attached to those titles when there really shouldn't be, when gamers are some of the most, influential people in the world right now, when YouTubers are talking to audiences of millions that they have created on their own, like using the stuff that they have just pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and become self-made business moguls. And so, I don't know, like, to me, I get it. I get Logan's frustration. I get, but I think he's approaching it the wrong way, right? I think that you got to, I think, first off, you need to stay strong and proud of the title of YouTuber. I think disowning it is a terrible idea. I think that, the fact that Northwest is moving over to become a YouTuber is going to be a big push in that direction of like, hey, there's actually a merging of these two worlds. But it's also one of those things too where, like,
she will be the bridge that unites us all.
Right? God, and see, that's the stupidest part of this whole thing.
And then Kim will run for president.
We've been doing
Mark our words.
Kim's going to run for president.
It will happen.
But that's the stupidest thing here is, like, it's going to take some celebrity coming over, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, now we get it. It makes so much sense. YouTube's a legitimate thing because
it's already starting. It's already starting.
I know, but anyway, the long and short of it is, Logan, get creative, do something different with your channel. If you're bored with it, that's stupid, that you're tired out with it, I get your frustrations. But guess what? Go do a collab with Northwest. I think right now, and one of the things that might help the situation is just having more YouTubers kind of do crossovers with traditional media. I think like that, the more we can break down that wall and show like, hey, YouTubers can function with celebrities and they can do things on traditional media and vice versa. Like, I think that stuff will help.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's story number 2. I think
technically it counts as number 3. We talked about social media up front.
I got a little heated there. I'm sorry about that, guys.
Okay. I think we have time for one or two more, though.
We do have time. It's funny too, though, because this one of the other stories that we had marked down as potentially talking about is Liza Koshy returning to her channel after a year, which, again, a lot of these YouTubers, I love Liza. Liza is one of the sweetest people.
Yeah, if we're going to talk about Liza, we actually have to mention, first of all, that she's
great.
She is really nice in person.
She's so sweet.
Actually super, super genuine. She's really down to earth, and she genuinely is as funny as she seems online. Like, she is great.
She's great.
But it's weird that they're making a really big deal about her. If I think a lot of other YouTubers who hadn't gotten all of this mainstream media attention had just decided to take a year off, I don't think there would be anything like this kind of coverage for them coming back. Like, imagine
there's all sorts of news stories.
If the Game Grumps took a year off or something like that, there would be no coverage of them coming back or something like that. Or even a really big YouTuber, I think, if they took a year off and just didn't do like a whole bunch of mainstream media stuff, they would come back and people would be like, oh, they're back.
Right. Yeah. It's a bit weird that, like, this is actually a story that's being covered by people like Liza Koshy is coming back after a year. The thing that I've noticed, and I'm just buttoning this up with the Logan Paul stuff, is you see a lot of these new tubers, or like kind of the people who've risen to like exponential levels of success very quickly.
Liza Koshy, David Dobrik, Gabby Hanna, like all of those kind of, guys fall into this category.
Logan and Jake. But like, I think with like Liza and Logan and stuff, Liza left YouTube to do her own show, her YouTube premium show. She really kind of slowed down her uploads to do like Family Double Dare. She was working with Vogue for a while, and it's interesting how you have a lot of these people who are eager to like get success on YouTube, but then kind of not abandon their fan base, but not maintain it in the way, not in the best way, by like not uploading videos anymore. And I think that's a dangerous prospect, right?
And I think we should temper that, or like at least provide the counter argument that a lot of the talk about mental health and YouTube is very valid. And the fact that people need breaks, YouTube doesn't build in breaks. There's no vacation if you're a YouTuber. Like, you have to carve out all of that for yourself and figure out how to do it without like kind of skipping a beat on the platform. So that is not what this is about. Like, mental health and taking breaks and not burning out is like really, really important. And it's a lesson that like we constantly have to learn about as well and try to figure out. So when it comes, and Liza has talked about the fact that she was feeling burned out, that she was feeling overwhelmed, and she was trying to balance everything. And I think there was an interview, or maybe it was like a podcast that she did at some point or whatever, where she talked about the fact that like she was doing Double Dare, and she was doing all these traditional media kinds of projects that have these huge teams around them, and she got to like show up, and there'd be lots of people to talk to, and there'd be lots of people to help her, and she didn't have to write and film and edit and upload all of her own stuff. And she was like, hey, that was nice. Like, that was really nice to have all of those people there doing stuff with me.
I can totally relate to that.
And that's valid, you know. It is unfortunate. Like, I think on YouTube it's really important to not leave your fan base to like and have people feel abandoned. That's really important. But there is that other side to it, which I think is fair.
I mean, and that's fine. Like, but you see it a lot. Even like Superwoman 2, we talked about last episode or 2 episodes ago, where you have these people who are getting these opportunities, but in the process, you can't abandon the people who help. Like, your audience is
who made you.
Yes, to a certain extent, right? Like, the people who are there supporting you, who care about you, who want to see you succeed, and then to suddenly be like, peace out, guys, I'm doing this other thing. Like, it's a bit disrespectful to them. And so you know, if you are one of those like YouTubers who are kind of like abandoning your channel, not for mental health reasons, but for stuff that is like, I need to become a traditional media celebrity, or like, I don't want to be a YouTuber anymore. Like,
what was Logan's quote?
I don't want
to keep doing this internet poopy.
Yeah, I don't want to
keep doing. Where is it?
Do I continue making internet
poopy?
Yes.
Yeah. Keep making internet poopy.
If he was making YouTube poop, man, I would actually maybe watch that, because YouTube poop is pretty amusing. But I was gonna say, the thing that I relate to when it comes to that quote you mentioned with Liza about liking walking on Double Dare, when we did The Runner, where I was the host of The Runner on Go 90, which was a show that I was just the host of. I helped out behind the scenes and like advised them on certain ways to run the game, and you know, ways that we could make it exciting and whatever. But like, for the most part, I was just a one cog in this giant machine that was producing the show. It was incredible. Like, because all of a sudden, if people got mad at the show, they got mad at the show and not at me. It wasn't like, oh, Pat screwed this thing up. It was, oh, I'm mad that this thing happened on The Runner. And, you know, all I had to do was go in and do my part well, and, you know, do a good job of being a host and engaging with people and making the game exciting. But, like, it was really freeing to not have to worry about camera angles and writing the script myself and making sure that like all the social media was in the right places and the assets were like properly organized and stuff. Like, I will say, it was a very refreshing break to kind of have something that was like a little bit more creatively freeing.
And they called us ahead of time to ask what snacks he wanted in his dressing room, because he had a dressing room all to himself. And we were like, okay, just put like a mountain of Diet Coke in there. So he literally had a pyramid of Diet Coke in the dressing room. And then he would ask me like, hey, what snacks do you want me to smuggle home? And I'd be like, oh, pirate booty all the way. And so he also had a lot of like beef jerky and pirate booty
Oreos
and Oreos.
Pirate booty.
Yeah, it was a lot. And I ended up eating a lot of pirate booty.
Yeah, every once in a while, like, it's funny because Escape the Night also asked that, and it was like, oh, I'll take crispy M&Ms, and it's funny, it always ends up being like Oreos, crispy M&Ms, beef jerky, and Diet Coke, and then pirate booty for Steph. Like,
Ayo.
That's always what it boils down to. It's really funny. Usually I'm like, I don't need anything, just have a Diet Coke on set, so that way But now it's unbranded Diet Soda X.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
unbranded
Diet Soda
Diet
X.
Coke, you missed your chance.
Yeah, maybe it's Diet Pepsi now. YouTuber. Okay, so this is the last story that we'll wrap up here, which is kind of spinning off of the Jojo Siwa stuff. Not really, but she's a kids YouTuber, and this is about kids stuff. YouTube is facing a lawsuit alleging that toy unboxing videos, so one of the pillars of kids entertainment on YouTube, they're facing a lawsuit that toy unboxing videos are abusive ad tactics that are aimed at children.
And we've talked a little bit about advertising when it comes to kids content. We talked about it on the series on film theory that we did on Jake Paul, where we talked about the rules around children's advertising and why you can't advertise to children except in very specific circumstances, and how you have to make it very clear to kids what is an advertisement and what's not, because before the age of 7, kids actually can't distinguish between what's content and what is an advertisement. Like, they think advertisements are just, I guess, like part of the show.
Well, it's interesting.
I didn't feel like I was that dumb when I was 6, but whatever, it's fine.
Wow. No, I mean, if you look at like the evolution of the kid's brain, it's a critical time, right?
And you can be very influenced, obviously, by advertisements.
But it's interesting because this just came out, but I last week had an interview with I think it was the Wall Street Journal about the evolution of kids content on YouTube, because we study this stuff, we consult people on this stuff, we just know a lot of this stuff, and so a lot of people use this as a resource. And toy unboxing videos, the history of them are actually really fascinating. Basically, the long and short of it is parents with kids were looking for some of the big keywords that you would expect to look for, right? Toy Story, Cars, Frozen, really popular
princesses,
really popular Disney movie, Little Mermaid, whatever, really popular Disney movies. But YouTube, because it has copyright protections in place, it doesn't allow clips of those movies online, except for like maybe the official Frozen Let It Go, and that's
like
it.
Trailer or whatever. Yeah,
that's it. You don't have a lot of stuff that actually fulfills those search terms that parents would actually be looking for. And especially since it's a system back in the day when toy unboxings were like the biggest thing, because this was a system that rewarded watch time and rewarded people, watching for long stretches of time, the stuff that was able to take advantage of this kind of algorithmic loophole were the toy unboxing videos, right? Where it's like, I'm unboxing the Toy Story playset with Woody, Buzz, and Slinky.
And now every time you search for Toy Story on YouTube, you can't get the full movie because the full movie is not there. It's that would be against copyright, but you do find all the toy unboxing videos.
Right. And instead of a 3-minute clip of Let It Go or whatever, you're now finding a 15-minute unboxing video of Frozen, Elsa, Olaf, Anna, toy unboxing with a bunch of hands, or like a kid on camera, like unboxing the stuff. And so that is the short story of how toy unboxing videos really became the pillar or kind of the foundation of kids content, especially in the early days of kids content on YouTube. And then from there it evolved into Spider-Man, Elsa, and all that other stuff.
And now if you look at channels that got really, really big off of the toy unboxing craze, like Ryan's Toy Review is a great example. He started out as a toy unboxer. Now he's spun off into all sorts of other stuff where he does content with his family, vlogs, challenges. He has his own toy line now. He's got like a whole bunch of stuff going on, and he's been able to spin off into a whole bunch of other content. But at its core, his channel also started out as toy unboxing.
Yeah, Ryan's interesting, and I think the way that they've done things is smart, because they've kind of paid it forward, where they're like, hey, look at how hugely successful we've been, look at how popular these videos have been, look at how much money we've been able to make. Let's actually
massive amounts of money.
He's been like #1 highest earner on YouTube for years now. But it's one of those things where they've taken that and they're like, hey, let's use this platform to now make more nutritious content, stuff that is a bit more educational, stuff that is not just kind of baited in toys and products, but instead like Ryan goes to the zoo, or Ryan goes to a space museum, or whatever, like the sort of stuff that like Mr. Rogers would do and things, which is great. Like, I think that is smart of them. I think it's awesome of them to kind of spin it off into more positive stuff. But at the end of the, not a lot of people have done that, or as kind of like positive in that way. And I'm not I'm not disagreeing with this lawsuit. You know, it is a bit weird that a 15-minute long video is aimed at kids. Like,
I just think it's a weird thing to bring up now. Like, I get
right?
it.
It's you're a couple years behind the times, friends.
It's a weird thing though, because right, it's on the one hand, I'm all about like parents taking as new parents, like I feel like there's a lot of responsibility, like all the responsibility actually falls on the parents. If you're showing your child, especially a young kid, a toddler, like, oh my gosh, anything on a screen, it's your absolute responsibility to watch it first and decide whether or not you think that content is appropriate for your young kid, right? I think the buck absolutely stops with parents, and I feel okay saying that now because we are parents. Like, and I'll be the first to say, like, Oliver is 8 months old and he grabs phones already. We don't show him anything on the phones. He's not allowed to watch any videos. He does not get any screen time, which is crazy because we're YouTubers, and he does not get any screen time. He is not allowed. No screens. But he still grabs the phone. Just the fact that he sees it in our hands or sees that it lights up or that it occasionally makes sounds when he's like in the room or whatever, he is already fascinated by it. So I get, on the one hand, how unbelievably difficult it is to monitor like everything, like and there are screens everywhere, but the buck has to stop at parents.
Well, it's interesting because like even in this interview that I had with the woman reporter who was doing the story, and I wonder if, you know, this news will kind of change the direction of where that story is headed. But even to her, I brought up, they're like, well, you know, doesn't YouTube have more of a responsibility around this stuff? And I'm like, you know, YouTube's doing its best, but at the end of the day, like you said, the parent should be vetting what this is going on. And also, let's not forget there's the YouTube Kids app. Like, that's the other thing, is like the YouTube Kids app is a vetted place.
Even the YouTube Kids app though has a lot of toy unboxing videos. I think you can't just trust like, hey, the Disney Channel or hey, Nickelodeon or hey, the YouTube Kids app. Like, I actually think you have to watch everything.
Sure.
I think, like, I know that that's a huge pain in the neck. Like, I get it.
Well, you create a curated playlist.
Yeah, you have to create a specific playlist that like kids are allowed to watch, because not even the YouTube Kids app is safe. And I think that's one of the arguments as part of this story, and that other people bring up, is like, hey, the YouTube Kids app doesn't have any cursing. It doesn't have any like suggestive, content. There's nothing that's like explicitly crosses any of those lines, but you can still have a toy unboxing video on the YouTube Kids app, and that's still an advertisement. Right. And I totally agree that it is absolutely an advertisement, whether or not the brand is actually sponsoring that video.
So should YouTube face a lawsuit about it?
Personally, if you asked me, no, because these have been like, toy unboxing videos have literally been around for like, 5-7 years now. It seems like a weird time to bring it up. So no, I don't think that it's fair to bring a lawsuit against YouTube for this. I think they're going after someone who they know has a lot of money, and they're hoping for a settlement. But on the other hand, the last drop of tea that I'll spill on this is that we have consulted a lot of family and toy channels in our capacity as like consultants, and especially when we were doing consulting like through some of the MCNs, we ran into a lot of family and kids channels. And some of them were pretty cool. Some of them were like, awesome people, really nice, and were just having like a great time with their kids online. Some of them weren't. Some of them were literally like, I'm making money off of this. This is a business. I'm making kids content not because I care about kids, not because I want to entertain them or educate them or anything. I'm doing it because it's fast, it's easy, it's cheap, and I make a ton of money because there's a lot of views in it. And it was one of those situations where like I've actually had like moral quandaries about giving them advice and being like, here's tips to help succeed, because and you really like
we like really downplay it at that. We're like, okay, we end those conversations pretty quickly.
Yeah, and we don't like, we don't take on people whose motives are like that. Like, those are people we don't consult for. We will not consult for. And that's why we talk to people about what their goals are on YouTube before we take them on in any kind of consulting, because there were a lot that we ran across where we were like, no, thank you. You do not have good intentions. You are literally just taking advantage of the fact that little kids like bright, shiny colors and loud noises. And there's nothing else behind it.
There's all sorts of tea to spill when it comes to interactions with the kids' channels.
We'll have to bring it up on another day.
That's a different day's worth of topics, because it's some of the stories of some of the people that you meet who are pursuing these sorts of channels and wanting to make them are kind of crazy.
Yeah. There are two sides to every coin. We know a lot of family and kids content who are awesome. They are amazing people.
Best of intentions.
Yes, incredibly. And then there are those who aren't.
Yeah.
So,
and then there are the people who delude themselves into thinking they're great, but they're really not, where they're like, I'm doing this for the betterment of the kids, but you can tell that they're really not. But they've convinced themselves that the stuff they're making is really great, but it's really not.
Anyway, that's for another day.
That's for a different day.
That's a new cup of tea.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, should YouTube be penalized for this? Like Stephanie said, I would.
Knowing what I know right now today, no. That's all I can say. Like that, and that is only an opinion, and that's only based on what I know today.
Right. Like, the thing is, you're punishing. I think what this boils down to, and just based off of the headline of the article and kind of the subject matter of this lawsuit, I think it's it's hard to penalize the platform for the actions of the users. And maybe that's the theme of today, quite honestly, with like the Article 13/17 stuff now, where, you know, all of it kind of boils down to this idea of YouTube taking the fall for a couple of bad actors who are using the platform, right? Or people who are using it improperly, like in the case of, you know, parents expecting the algorithm to just like serve my kid the appropriate stuff, but then I'm mad at you for serving them the wrong stuff. But I'm the parent. Why, YouTube, did you not serve my kid the right stuff when I told you to? It's like, YouTube, is that their responsibility? No. Should they be responsible for that? I don't think so. Like, I would argue on YouTube's side for this one, where it's like, you know, the algorithm's in place, the system's in place. There is quality kids content out there. You, as a parent, if you're not comfortable with your kids seeing it, then you need to opt into that stuff. And you know,
there were plenty of kids programs growing up that I wasn't allowed to watch.
Yeah,
like they were kids programs. They were rated TVE or what, the TV Y7 or whatever. Yeah. And I was not allowed to watch them because my parents were like, no, the rating system might say that this is fine for you, but we don't agree with the message or whatever. And that was like, that was their prerogative.
What weren't you allowed to watch, Steph?
I wasn't allowed to watch Salute Your Shorts because my parents considered it vulgar.
That's more of like a preteen show. Yeah, that you can't be too young.
I was like 8 or 9, and my parents were like, no, too much fart humor. It's too vulgar. You're not allowed to watch that.
Fart humor.
I don't know if it was the fart humor exactly, but it was like a bit of an edgy kids show.
It was.
And then Rocco's Modern Life, they thought had too many adult. They thought that had too many adult themes. So I wasn't allowed to watch that one.
Yeah, that's probably fair. But again, you're totally right. Like, not letting the system, the rating systems or the algorithms or whatever,
or the networks dictate,
like, just because it's there doesn't necessarily mean it's appropriate for how you want to raise your kid as an individual. And no platform, no network, no nothing is ever going to be able to give the precise programming mix that you want your kid to find. Not even PBS. Like, great, I might be fine with my kid watching a marathon of Teletubbies and Sesame Street, but whoa, don't you dare show them the Wiggles. Right? Don't you dare show them the PBS masterpiece production of Cats. He doesn't need to see Rum Tum Tugger swaying his hips.
He's gyrating, okay?
There's gyrations there. They are going to the heavy side layer, and I am not prepared for my kid to go to the heavy side layer, okay? So I get that, and I think that, you know, YouTube having to kind of foot the bill or kind of like take the blame for that is a bum rap. You know, a lot of times, you know, we try to ride a middle line here where we see the good that YouTube does, but we also see the bad that YouTube does, and YouTube a lot of times has to take the fall for a lot of stuff, and I think this is one of those times where they're taking the fall for something that really shouldn't fall on them. And usually it's the creators at the end of the day who end up having to take the ultimate fall because
Yeah,
it's like YouTube makes a sweeping change.
It'll roll downhill toward us.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
It'll get to us eventually because that's what happens when you have to make a platform-wide change. So anyway, that is it for today. That is the last drop of tea.
Don't
good,
you feel refreshed?
Good to the last drop. Quite literally, there's nothing. No, there was.
Geez.
There
Stop,
was.
Stop spilling things.
There was the last two drops.
Stop. No.
There's one less drop. There it is.
No.
There it is.
Okay.
There we go. That was the last drop of tea, my friends. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will be back. We will be back on Thursday for another live stream, 4:00 p.m. Pacific time, and we'll be back with another tea time in 2 weeks.
We are going on vacation next week, everyone. It's been over a year since we've been on
a non-work related trip.
Yes, we are very excited about it. It's our first family vacation. We're taking the baby, we're packing him up, and we're cruising away to the Caribbean. We are really excited about it, actually. I'm so excited. I've never been on a cruise. I'm actually thrilled.
So we will be back 2 Tuesdays from now,
Yes.
or we're back on Thursday for a live stream. We'll be back 2 Mondays from now
with the regular
with
schedule.
a regular stream, and then we'll be back on that following Tuesday with the live stream, probably 10 pounds heavier and much more sunned.
Can't wait for the midnight buffet.
God, can't wait for the buffet
All
round
right.
the clock.
See you guys.
We will see you later. And remember, guys, that is just a podcast.
Still haven't figured out the ending.
Need
Okay.
to figure out the ending.
I really need to sit down with that one. Okay.
Let's try a couple. That's just some tea. Some spilt tea.
Drink on.
Oh, that's rough.
Drink up.
We had a good one last week, didn't we?
It was a cheers. Here, let's.
Oh, it was
ready,
a cheers.
Chris? Ready, get ready to cut. And
And
cheers.
chink.